call the meeting to order and begin with the opening invocation.
Heavenly Father, Son, Holy Spirit, God, we praise you for all that you know yourself to be. We offer the little that we can offer to you who perfectly knows it all and is involved with all. Thank you for this time to be able to be about the city's business. We thank you for the opportunity to thank you for our local law enforcement and social services that has taken care of a troubled young adult. Thank you for this time with our elected officials. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 And I apologize for whatever went off on my wall.
Recite Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We will go ahead and move on to the third item, which is to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Mary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Move on to item number 4, which is to approve the consent calendar, which is the minutes from our August 26th meeting and the payment of bills.
So moved.
Moved by Roy, second by Doug. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Brings us to the next item. We will open a public hearing on proposed assessments for non-payment of delinquent utility bills.
Sorry. So in your packet on page 7 and 8, we've got 3 different accounts that we're proposing to submit for assessment. Copy of the resolution in your packet.
Anyone here to speak on behalf? I don't see anyone here.
So how long do they go before they come before us? Do we let them be delinquent?
I don't know that offhand. Like, I've told Jess now, our UP clerk, if anyone's past due and they have like a big balance, we should just assess them because then they're not delinquent anymore. 2 of them that are on there though, that are really sizable, they are shut off through utilities and I don't know, they haven't gotten turned back on, so we reassess it.
Rental.
And 1 rental,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Do they still have that revenue recapture? Yeah.
We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and then I would entertain a motion.
I move resolution number 1998.
Second.
Motion by Roy, second by Mary. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. That brings us to the next item, which is a presentation by Elizabeth Weifel, Senior Attorney, Flattery and Hood, regarding Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm gonna just pass our scan, just pass it over that way. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. I appreciate you having me here tonight, as the Mayor said. And he pronounced my last name right, which doesn't often happen. Elizabeth Wayful, Flaherty and Hood. I think I've met most of you before, but I am one of the attorney lobbyists with Flaherty and Hood, and I work with CGMC on environment and energy issues, as well as annexation and land use. Staples has been a very long-time member of the organization, and we really appreciate that. You can kind of see we are really spread throughout the state. I think we're actually closer to 115 up there, but LGA is the biggest thing we work on, but we also care about environment and energy and economic development, transportation, annexation and land use, and labor and employment. So going to start off with a little bit of a recap of the 2025 session. You know, every year I come here and I tell you, this was the weirdest session ever. Seriously though, this was the weirdest session ever. You know, it started off with an election where we had a one-vote majority in the Senate that then became quickly narrowed after an unfortunate death. We had craziness in the House when we had actually, I hate to say this, but a college classmate of mine, it turns out he didn't live where he said he lived, so we had special elections, different things that really sort of delayed the actual start. And as you know, we finally got going kind of like, you know, late February, early March with the House being led by Elisa Damuth, but an evenly split House. And in the House, everything was split evenly. And I bring this up, y'all probably knew it, but what made it particularly unique was budget negotiations. Now, every year when there's budget negotiations, you'll hear from the minority saying, oh, they don't listen to us, they don't listen to us. Well, here in the House, we had no minority. So we had two equal parties, and so that we really made it a four-way dance in terms of negotiating. Something we really haven't seen before. You know, good and bad, I'll be honest, for some of us trying to stop crazy policy stuff, it actually wasn't bad, because when you gotta get that much agreement, it's good, but made some other things harder, which is why we ended up in a special session. Two big tasks for this year. Pass a two-year budget. They had to do that. As you know, we don't get it, you know, Minnesota, we cannot deficit spend. If you don't get your budget done by June 30th, government shuts down. We also really wanted to pass a bonding bill because they can't seem to get back on the regular cycle. But it did get both of those done, but we'll talk a little bit more about it. We had some basic goals this legislative session. We wanted to protect local government aid, always one of our top goals, trying to get a bonding bill done, because we know that particularly for greater Minnesota, it is essential that we get the PFA funded and BDPI and all of those other programs our cities benefit from. Also wanted to pass some sustainable ongoing EMS funding. We got one-time funding done last time, but we really wanted to get some sustainable funding. And then the other thing that I spent far more time on than I should was dealing with the one-size-fits-all zoning mandates. This is where a lot of, you know, what made a big difference this session. This, I know it's a little bit of a crazy slide, but it shows you what the state budget looks like. We all remember 2023, $17 billion surplus, not there anymore. I mean, part of that was that a lot of that was one time. This year, we still had a projected budget balance, but in 2023, they decided to finally bring inflation on the spending side back into budget forecasts, which means that you start looking out to the future, and it would appear we are heading to a deficit unless things change. And so that really did color how people approached the budget, and we're going to talk particularly about how that impacted both LGA and bonding. Again, that tone really set how people were approaching things. The governor, you know, proposed a number of reductions for both this budget cycle and for the next budget cycle, leaving some of it to be done in 2027. He also proposed raising revenues through a variety of means. The House and Senate had slightly different targets. I do want to point out that the House proposed more in reductions than the Senate did. Where this gets interesting is on the next slide. What does it mean for LGA? LGA, governor said we're not cutting LGA. We're going to cut other things, not going to cut LGA. Same thing for the House. Senate, even though they had fewer cuts than the other two, we're proposing a $20 million cut to LGA and similar cuts to CPA, which I know can often affect you folks as well, even though, it goes to the counties. They also would have raised significant taxes and raised spending in other areas. And quite frankly, we were a little befuddled, but more than befuddled, we thought it was unnecessary and unfair, and we called it out. It really was unnecessary. And this right here is literally what we were telling people, because it's like, how can you be raising taxes yet cut LGA, which essentially, as you all know, raises property taxes? How can you find, money for a sales tax exemption on professional golf? I love golf as much as the next person, but I think LGA is more important. The cuts would have fallen especially heavy on cities like yours and Wadena and all the other ones around. And so at the end of the day, we were also concerned about why were they proposing to cut LGA, which, as you may, if you've been around, does not increase with inflation. We've tried to get that passed, have not been able to yet. But it doesn't grow with inflation, but the Senate budget would have held harmless other tax programs that do grow on autopilot, like the homestead credit refund, which fine program, except it primarily benefits the metro. So we don't quite frankly understand why they did it, but we don't take these things lying down. That's why we exist. There's my colleague Bradley up there, testifying multiple times. He actually, I think, He certainly caught people's attention when he called out some of this stuff, I guess, as it should. We rallied rural senators of both parties, to try to our aid, worked on the Senate staff, governor's office, action alerts. We were able to really keep the House, DFL, and GOP very solid on LGA. And so at the end of the day, even though there was a lot of negotiations, there were no LGA cuts in the future. But again, if the Senate, if for whatever reason, is proposing it in a year where we didn't have an actual deficit, we will continue to be fighting hard on this in the future. But again, that really was one of the reasons that the CGMC was created in the first place. We will be continuing to work on it. Bonding. Now, this is where I spent a lot of my time. As you may recall, no bonding bill since 2023. Unfortunately, they really have gotten off cycle since about 2016. It's been very frustrating. Part of the challenge is with a bonding bill, you need a supermajority. So that always makes it challenging. Doubling, one of the disappointments of not passing a bonding bill last year is the debt capacity actually went down, so we could only get about $700 million. Governor came out with the first proposal, very heavy on state-owned assets, some money for PFA at $99 million. Very little set aside for local projects. We worked heavily on this. You can see Bradley over here at the press conference. We did a lot of individual lobbying right up until the day of the special session. We even haven't done this in a couple years, but leading up to the special session, we even did with our partners radio ads across Minnesota, trying to make sure legislators were going to support a bonding bill. We are happy that it passed. Again, would have liked to have seen a bigger one, but we're dealing with the caps and the looming deficit. Very happy about the money put into the PFA. That was very necessary, and I know that for a number of cities, they weren't going to be able to move forward with their projects this year because they weren't even going to be able to get a loan. So very important that we got that done, established a new program for some of our cities who are facing drinking water problems with manganese and PFAS. Local roads and bridges money, BDPI, always important. And then honestly, my proudest achievement, increasing the caps on the WIF and the PSIG programs. Sorry, we didn't get that done in time for your project, but it is really important, I think, to Greater Minnesota to get those dollars up there. And then finally, the other big thing that we spent far more time working on than, quite frankly, I think is necessary. I shouldn't say, it was necessary to spend that time on it. I wish we could find other ways to solve these problems. Housing and zoning. We have a housing problem across Greater Minnesota and across actually metro area, everywhere in Minnesota. I think the challenge is we all look at it differently about how to solve it. And last year it was the missing middle. This year it was yes to homes. We're not opposed to homes. We love homes. We want more homes. We don't think zoning is the way, state down metro style zoning in Greater Minnesota is the way to get there. So very similar package to the previous year. Create more housing by increasing density on single family lots. Multifamily housing must be required in commercial zones. Parking reform, bans on aesthetic and building material mandates, and HOA reform. Again, because this is the area I work on, I know a lot of our cities are changing their zoning. They are changing their parking requirements. They are making those changes, but they're doing it in a way that makes sense for Greater Minnesota cities, not for metro cities. And ultimately, we spent a lot of time in hearings. That's actually Craig Clark, you might know him from Austin, testifying. I think I had at least 8 different testifiers this year because there were that many bills. We were able to stop all bills from reaching the House. We did try, however, to reach a compromise because we know that this issue keeps coming back, and we put together what we thought was an extremely reasonable package with some zoning reforms, other things, and the advocates were like, yeah, that's not enough for us, and so they turned it down, which I think is a strange way to operate, but it did kind of set the stage for a continuing confrontation on this issue. We will try to work and be reasonable, because we do think that there are other things that are really causing the housing crisis. So, looking ahead, and by the way, there's other things we did this legislative session, and we just hit the big 3. There's more in the packets. We don't know what the impacts of the loss of Melissa Hortman was. That just hit a lot of us hard. She's just, dear woman, I actually went to law school with her. Just very sad to see the whole thing happen. We'll see a special election for her seat next week. House DFL elected a new leader last night. I'm going to be real curious to see how he turns out. He's from the same area of the metro as Melissa Hortman, so I'm hoping it means he's a little more on the somewhat moderate side. We could be seeing increased safety and security measures. We've got, like I said, at least 2 more special elections, but if the Woodbury seat goes to the Democrats, then we'll have 1 more election in the House. We are still looking, I was asking Gerald here yet about how it might affect you. We don't know how all the federal changes are gonna affect our cities yet, but that we think at least at minimum, cuts to Medicaid will affect the state budget. We don't know how it'll affect the local levels yet. Obviously, the economic uncertainty on tariffs also could affect the state budget. And then if you're going to come visit, they're still working on the state office building, so it is that awkward situation where most of the House reps don't really have offices you can visit. It's challenging, but they'll be there, and everybody's back on February 17th. So that's what we look forward to, but fall conference, not too far away in Grand Rapids, if any of you can join us. It's always a good time for discussion of kind of like, what are we going to be doing in the upcoming session? Legislative Action Day, always our most popular event, but I also want to point out, next summer, New Ulm, go see, Herman the German, who doesn't want to spend time in New Ulm, right? I mean, we all love Greater Minnesota, but it is a fun city, so I encourage you to think about coming down for the summer conference. Any questions? I know I spew out a whole bunch of information at you, but, and you can always, I do always want to encourage too that if you are interested in getting more involved, we are always looking for more people to get on our committees, particularly I need more people on my environment committee, so.
How were you able to convince the Senate to go off of their 20 million cut in LGA?
My guess would be, well, for this year, I don't know if we'll be having a tax bill. I think that given that it's an election year, and they've got, legislators like Senator Hauschild up in northeast Minnesota and Senator Kupek out in western Minnesota, and quite frankly, even Senator Frentz in Mankato, which also receives a good chunk of LGA, as does, Rochester and St. Cloud's. They've got Democratic legislators. They are not going to want to go back and face voters saying, yeah, we cut your LGA, so your property taxes are going up. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm hoping that is will be sort of the biggest situation. We're still not, partly, I don't know, still not entirely sure why they decided to take that route, and it was very chair-driven. But I think that given that's an election year, I think it's less likely to happen. If you've been around, back in, we spent so many years trying to get LGA back up to that 2002 level. We finally got it. Now we've been trying to work on inflation indexing, So we have the memories. In fact, we even have the old ads. We played that at the summer conference that we ran back then on LGAs. I think as we get closer to election, people are going to be less willing to do it because of the impact. But it is something that we just need to make sure we are all talking to our legislators on both sides. I think this is one of those situations where it is good to have that divided House and the divided House between the Republicans and the Democrats. But quite frankly, both House chairs, the co-chairs, both parties were opposed to it. I think that, we had Representative Davids, who's from a small town in southeast Minnesota, and Representative Gomez, who's from Minneapolis, so they really understand how LGA affects cities. So I don't think the Senate will do it in an election year, and if they do, I think that the House will be kind of where we have our stronghold in terms of pushing back on that, so.
That budget surplus, we hear about it all the time, about how it's gone. Don't really hear where it went.
You know, well, you got a good point. You know, I think some of it, where some of it went, the budget surplus back in 2023, part of that was a one-time deal. And so they did take a big chunk of that and put it in reserve. And then they did then beef up some of the other programs. I think some people like some of the spending they did, some of the they didn't. I do think one of the other factors that has also really shrunk it going into the future is that they have started counting the inflation on the expense side. And it was before my time. I want to say it would have been in like, honestly, I can't remember the year. I know Tim Pawlenty was still in the legislature, and I think Roger Moe, and I can't remember who the governor was, they actually pulled inflation out of the expense side of the ledger, which always made, you know, sort of budgeting interesting going forward. So this year was the first year they, you know, actually put it back in there. So that's also part of where it went in there is inflation rose higher than I think people had anticipated. So that also made the deficit. So it was a combination of different things, but I think some of it was increased spending. And then the other chunk, some went into, we do have a steady reserve. Again, that was one of the reasons, you know, why LGA and other things got cut back in 2002 is we didn't have as good of reserves. And so it was a combination of those things, so.
There's no place you can just look and see the.
No, I mean, you know, I could say, you know, it's this or that, but, you know, I find that when you do that, everybody sort of picks on the program they dislike. You know, like, so, well, we lost our budget deficit because we're giving all the cities all this money, or we gave the cities all this money for, you know, EMS funding that I don't, you know, I mean, it was increased, a combination of increased spending and inflation is probably the best way to explain it, so.
And it was the one-time COVID dollars too that
Yeah.
beefed it up, and then they forgot that it was one time.
Yeah, I think that the one time, and I think that honestly was, you know, though it wasn't, the one-time COVID wasn't built into the ongoing budget, what it did do was raise people's expectations, you know, sort of in terms of what they were gonna be able to do in the future. So, but yeah, that, you know, so that was what made that also made the budget surplus look bigger than it was, so. Any other questions? We still love LGA? Good. Well, thank you. Again, always looking for help on our committee, so if you're interested at all in any of them, please do let us know. So, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. All right, we'll move on. Item number 8, we'll consider submittals for multi-purpose community facility use grant.
Starting on page 15, so this is the Department of Education grant that we had applied for last winter. And the primary utilization of those dollars would be to construct the new ADA ramp on the east side of the community center, do technology upgrades, internet upgrades, redo or you know, do some rehab to the meeting rooms, and then you know, provide a commitment to doing education, you know, largely health education type programming at the community center. So the grant amount that we applied for and were funded is in here on page 19. So we were awarded a $234,000 grant for that. The ramp is estimated to be at about the 140 number, and then the, you know, the equipment code, the 590, that's 70,000 is basically for, you know, the equipment and room improvements. So the big thing that we've been waiting for an answer, and this is a totally new program for Department of Ed, so they've assigned new staff to it, and, you know, nobody knew the answer to a lot of these questions, but there's a declaration on real property in there that, so we're required to put in information related to the community center and then record that with the county, you know, basically saying that we got this money from the state of Minnesota. If we were to turn around and sell the building the year after, they could basically want us out of the proceeds of the sale to pay the grant back. It's a depreciating type thing over time. The computers that we're gonna buy, 3 years afterwards, they don't have any value anyway. So that goes away faster than the hardcore brick and mortar type stuff. But, so I wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that before I sign it and record it, and then the grant agreement comes. But, so there's a commitment. I don't anticipate that we're planning to sell the community center anytime soon, so not all that concerned about it, so. If we did find a hot buyer, somebody won the Powerball, and came up and wanted to buy it, we would probably worry about the $234,000 anyway.
Right.
So, but I wanted to, make sure the council was aware of that declaration on real property. And 25 years from now, if the city is doing something, one of you will go, oh yeah, I remember that Nelson guy was talking about this back then.
Probably not. 25 years from now.
I was talking almost specifically about Blake.
Write that down, Mike, so you have it.
So basically, I'm just looking for action from the council to go ahead and move forward with the declaration, and then we'll have the actual formal grant agreement back before the council as soon as we get this stuff done.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by John, second by Mary. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 9, which is to discuss the 2026 preliminary budget.
So a copy of the current proposed preliminary budget is in your packet, starting on page 20. I did have a chance this morning to sit down with Mary Jo, and hope to still do it before the second meeting with you, Blake, just to go through in more detail than we want to spend time, here at the public meeting. But we did have our budget workshop, went through it in quite a bit of detail, had some good discussion, and wanted to put it back out, see if the council has any other questions on it. There's a couple of I would say probably 3 things out there that have the potential to have an impact on budget. One, we've got labor negotiations here this fall for 26 and 27. So we don't know exactly what that's going to be. The other is we don't know health insurance yet. We anticipate we're going to have a pretty good estimate on the number prior to the next council meeting, which is the one where we have to set our preliminary budget levy. So we'd be able to get that information, plug that in, and know for sure what that is. The other piece of it that's going to be new starting in 2026 is the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, which employer and we anticipate employees, will both be contributing to going forward. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the ballpark total city portion of that is?
My gut says 9,000.
About 9,000. So, almost a full percent of our levy from the Paid Family Medical Leave.
And they anticipate there's going to be changes to it during this next session too,
Yeah,
because they passed it and didn't really
yeah.
realize what the impact was, because the impact, I think I've read, is going to be much more than they anticipated. So,
Yeah, and if Elizabeth was here, we could ask her how much, because I know they allocated a lump sum to the Paid Family Medical Leave Program to kind of jumpstart that, and then are relying on that payroll tax to fund it ongoing. But I would agree with your assessment that the estimated cost of operating that program is probably going to be a lot more than what they think or thought or said, so. Who knows what will happen to that going forward, but yeah, I guarantee as we get into it, I think it'll be a lot like the cannabis legislation that's still being tweaked, you know, where they put it in place and kind of change things as we go, so. But that, does have obviously a budget, impact for all employers that are out there, so. Just, hit a couple of high points in here. One, obviously, is tax capacity growth versus tax levy dollar amount. We have been, over the years, able to hold that tax levy, the dollar amount that we're levying. Tax rates, depending on what's going on with market values, fluctuate or have the tendency to fluctuate a lot. Tax levy is a dollar amount. So you can see that that's been, relatively flat going back to 2021. I think on average over the last 7 years, I think we've been at about average of about 1.4% levy increase per year. With, there's been a couple of zeros in there and some, less than 2 numbers. So where we'll end up exactly this year, I don't know yet. There's just still too many unknowns. But, tax levy analysis sheet in there on page 22. The new tax capacity, net tax capacity, we've got about 194,000. Had a number of big projects come onto the tax rolls, which will benefit everybody. With the 7.6 that we've got in this preliminary budget right now, average $150,000 house be at about $47 increase.
That's for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we're, I think we're probably not going to be too far, depending on what we find with health insurance for the actual preliminary. We're not going to recommend coming in with a 2% preliminary tax levy just because of the unknowns that we have out there. Once we set that preliminary number, you can go down, but you can't go up. So, I don't know how much you want me to go into detail. It's largely the same as what we went through in the workshop. I guess I'm happy to answer questions that the council has. Happy to meet, individually with any of you if you want to really dive into it, and maybe one day, Blake, after work or something, we can get a half hour, 45 minutes, and just kind of go through it. That works.
Anybody need to go through it more depth? I think it's a consensus that we're good.
Okay. Like I say, as you're reading the budget in bed or whatever, if you have questions, don't call me at that time of night, but the next morning you can call. Happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, we'll move on to item number 10, which is to consider approval of parcel combination related to the MMFCU development.
So in your packets, starting on page 62, you recall a few meetings ago we did a parcel split process, and that was basically to peel portions of parcels, to separate them out, creating multiple parcels with the ones, the 2 houses that are being purchased. There's 2 portions of 2 parcels north of the alley for the parking, that west 25 feet of the lot that we sold. So basically what this does, if you look at the 3rd page in here, it basically turns those into one parcel for property tax purposes. So the county won't, they won't create that parcel until we look at it, which I appreciate Todd County not doing that, because we had historically a couple of doozies out there that we likely would not have approved the way they did. So my recommendation would be to approve that, the two parcel combinations as requested.
I'll make the motion for that approval.
A motion from John, second from Mary Jo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Move on to item 11. Consider request from B&B Sports Bar and Grill for permission to open at 8 a.m. on Sunday, September 28th and October 5th due to the Vikings football games.
So I don't know the Vikings schedule by heart, but I think maybe those are both overseas games. We have had this request in previous years that the council has approved. So.
I'll make a motion for that approval.
Second. Motion from John, second Blake. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, move on to item number 12. Consider approval of resolution 1999 ordering preparation of report on improvement 4th Street, Northeast Street and utility improvement project.
So the last page in your packet has a copy of that resolution. Council did approve the same resolution a couple of years ago, but Bolton Mink just wants to do it again now that we're a little bit closer, and you know, anticipating sometime in September here finding out funding for that project. So once we find that out and things start rolling, we're going to be doing, you know, public hearings, assessment hearings, and going through the whole process, very similar to what we did on that Second Street project. Only a lot more people affected on this one. So I'd recommend approval of the resolution.
I'll move resolution 1999.
I'll second it.
Motion Mary, second Roy. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The next item is to consider scheduling a closed meeting on September 23rd per Minnesota Statute 13D, Section 05 for performance review. And what I have here is I have a packet for each of you that I'd like to hand out. One for Carol. And I'd like to ask you to go through that and to do the evaluation.
Thank you.
So there's some details as far as the information in there. There's a job description, and then there's a portion of the personnel policy that addresses standard rules of conduct. Those are all questions and things that you'll be looking at when you do the performance review on Gerald. And then there's the standards, and then there's the form itself in the back that you fill out. And then I'd like to have that back to me by Friday the 19th, and then I will get all the results compiled, and then that's what we would be doing to cover in the closed meeting, the results of that. And then Gerald will be doing a similar one, self-evaluation.
Return by when? The 19th?
Friday the 19th. Any questions? Just a performance review, annual performance Gerald, so we're just gonna get caught up with that. So I just need I would entertain a motion to schedule a closed meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Motion Roy, second Mary, to schedule a closed meeting. I guess we need to set a time for that, or can it be at the end of can it just be at the end of
Just do it at the end of the
Yeah, so-
last agenda item,
Okay.
next council meeting.
That's our next council meeting.
Next council meeting,
Okay.
that's the 23rd, so. We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thanks, you guys. Move on to open forum. Is there anyone here that needs to say anything or would like to talk about anything in open forum today? Not when we want to see the administrator's report.
Few items, just to update the council on. Charter Commission, annual meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 24th. So that affects, I think, 3 of you. I think, everybody get the email? Did you see that, Doug?
What's that?
Did you get my email on the Charter Commission?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Am I off?
No, you're off now.
I'm off.
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. It's amazing. But anyway, so 24th here, 5 o'clock on that Wednesday. So this will come full circle back to the council because we've got some terms expiring next spring, so we'll need to find out if people want to continue. We did have one resignation from the Charter Commission, so we'll need to fill that vacancy. So we'll keep you posted. We had last Thursday afternoon the bid opening for the locker room rehab project over at the community center. We had 5 qualified bidders. High Tech Construction came in as a low bidder, $494,000. So that will be coming back to the council 2 weeks from now to consider awarding that bid to High Tech. So between the boiler project and the locker room project, it was in the neighborhood of where the engineers were estimating those 2 combined projects were gonna fall. So, speaking of the boiler project, that started yesterday morning at the community center. So right now the building's closed down. All of the old equipment has now been removed from the boiler room. The exhaust flue that goes all the way up through the roof is all of the concrete liner has been busted out of there. So according from what Lacey tells me, it was rather noisy yesterday in the community center. But so that'll be replaced with PVC. Ultimately, there's going to be 2 boilers, 2 redundant boilers, and a separate hot water heater, where right now we have 1 boiler that heats all the domestic and heating hot water. So when that baby goes down, it's a problem. So, that, and then 2 electrical panels, original electrical panels remain in there that will be replaced. Nobody wants to open the doors, they're so rusty, so. So it'll be nice to get all that done. Anticipate next week being able to open things back up, and get people back in the building. When the locker room project starts, part of the boiler room project, we are plumbing a temporary shower onto the shower deck. Because people are required to rinse off before they get in the pool, and everybody wants to rinse off when they get out of the pool. So they'll be able to do that. They'll either wear their swimsuits home, or they could change in one of the 2 bathrooms across the hall. So that's really the best we could do to keep the pool open and keep aquasize and lap swim and all that stuff going in there during the locker room project. So,
but there may be some time where you're gonna have to close it.
oh, there will be certain dates, and Lacey has let like volleyball league or the high school volleyball team will use it at times, just to make sure that, they're aware before they're signing up to come in here, that there will be certain dates that there's gonna be an inconvenience. Might only be able to use part of the gym, might not be able to be in there at all, whatever. But, it'll be, it's gonna be a big project, and so there will be inconvenience to people.
But the end product will be so wonderful that it's worth a little sacrifice.
That's what we tell everybody. No, it really is gonna be nice to get those done. Those are two projects that we've been talking about for, 25 years. So. Storm shelter, not a lot of activity out there. There's been, High Tech has been out with their welder connecting those precast roof panels to the walls. We anticipate the concrete contractor to get back out there. We're thinking next week to pour the lid on the shelter. We got to grout that joint between all of the panels, and then they'll pour a 4-inch concrete roof on that. So,
It's supposed to be favorably warm weather, so that would be great.
yeah, that'd be good. It would be good. T-hanger project, still waiting on light sensor replacement. They indicate they'll have that done by the end of this week, and then get people in there. Doug, you'll be happy to know I got one taker on the storage unit, so.
Cool, good,
Yeah. We'll see if the other one goes, but
yeah,
way ahead.
there you go.
And then just wanted to update the council. I did have a good conversation with Don, the auction house guy, Don's Auctions, and he kind of understands what we got going. I understand what he's got going. He was going to talk with the food truck vendor and then get back to me. I tried calling him a couple of times in the interim and haven't heard back yet. So, but I think it's important that we understand that all we were proposing with that ordinance was to simply clarify what a private auction was. The intent of planning and zoning or the council is not changing as a result of this. It's just a clarification. So, but I appreciate the council being open to having that conversation with them if there's a different solution. So that's what I know tonight. So happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I move that we adjourn.
Second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed, same sign.